Hello, truth seekers. Let's talk a little bit about regretting things that we say, things that we do, things that we wish we could take back that we're ashamed of. Because I know the more people walk down the path and try to follow Jesus, the more we're aware of our past, the more we're aware of what we've done. And sometimes some of us get really upset and we can't forgive ourselves. But this is where regrets are good because we can learn from what we did. If we actually reflect on what was going on, we could see a pattern. Maybe you were doing things because you were drinking too much or taking drugs. Maybe you would be reacting to something because you were fearful or filled with anxiety and you ran to something else other than God to give you that peace. If we actually look at the things that we do that we regret, you might be quite enlightened. Let's use that word. When you say, wait a minute, I see a pattern that's happening when I continue to do this certain thing that I regret. Say these things that I regret. So let's not be so hard on ourselves. We have to love ourselves. I'm telling you, I remember when I went to confession, I kept going to confession over and over again for a sin that I wasn't committing anymore, but that I couldn't believe that God would forgive me for. And the priest called me out on it. He said, "Are you still committing this sin?" And I said, "No." He said, "You have to let go. You have to know that the Lord forgave you for this and that you need to forgive yourself." I know we're probably the hardest ones to forgive and the ones that we are the hardest on, but we need to love ourselves. If we don't love ourselves and embrace the teachings that God is trying to show us, then we're not going to get holier and we're not going to improve. That's what God's here for. He's going to take us down that path and He's going to help us with these things in our lives that we've regretted in the past as long as we run to Him. So let's talk about 3 things that we can do. Number 1, go to confession as often as that regretful behavior continues in your life. I don't care what it is. If you're snapping at your family, yelling at your kids, maybe you're over drinking, maybe you're promiscuous, maybe you're watching porn, maybe you have an eating disorder, maybe, right? There's a ton of things that we the next day wake up and say, I wish I never did that. So if we continue to say an act of contrition on our own, but also frequent that beautiful sacrament of confession and receive those graces and call out to God to help us, He will help us. We're made imperfect on purpose because in our weakness, He is our strength. So that's number 2. Every time we find ourselves in that moment of weakness, that moment of regret, toss it to God and say, Lord, I am so sorry, especially if we realize it kind of afterwards. But the third thing is to identify those times and that near occasion of sin. If you know maybe when you overdrink, that's when you say things and do things, then maybe you can avoid those things to begin with, right? Maybe we can stop at the moment that that temptation comes over us and call out for God's strength to walk away from that sin and that behavior so that we can rely on Him to be our strength and not ourselves. And let's not forget, confess pride. It's one of the last things that people forget because we're so prideful. We think we can do things on our own and we think we can live life on our own. But you gotta know, we need God every moment, every day, especially to stop us from having and doing those regretful things in our lives, right? Regret, it's a good thing. Let's continue to examine our consciences. Let's look back on every day and see where we saw God, where we listened to God, where we ignored God, and when we were prideful and did our own thing. Those regrets will soon fall away. You won't have to battle those same temptations. but we have to be humble and go to God for his help. I know a lot of you are struggling with some things out there because you tell me. You send me emails, you reach out, you comment on stuff, and I know that people are battling sin. We all battle it every moment of every day. But God, in our weakness, is our strength. So let's run to him always and learn. Let's look back on the regrets and learn and see how we can learn what not to do before we actually have those things happen in our lives. Oh, and I have to say, I know a lot of you have been reaching out about the hat. And I know that I asked you if you would be interested in the hat. So I've got a few, like dozen people that want it. And a couple of you actually have sent me emails like, hey, when are you going to get that hat? As a matter of fact, a woman stopped me at Kohl's and she's like, I love your hat. And I'm like, thank you. I designed it. But anyway, I don't have a whole lot of people that have responded. So if you're seriously interested, let me know, because the more I can buy, the more cheaper it will be, the less expensive it will be. So if you're interested, let me know. And I'm not looking to make any money on this. I just want you to pay for shipping and I will go ahead and order them. But they're not going to be cheap. They're going to be somewhere probably like 50, 60 bucks. I got to go shop for some sort of cheaper company because again, I just bought this for me, and I'm going to get some shirts that don't have Under Armour or Nike. I'm going to get, the cross to kind of match it as well. So I'm not trying to get into merchandising because that's a pain. I've seen my brother do it. I'm like, I don't think I want to get into that. But that's also possibly a possibility if you're interested in that too. But I want to say I'm sorry and thank you for those who are interested, because I haven't done anything with that so far. Okay, y'all, I love you. Don't be regretful and harmful to yourself by hating yourself. Learn from your mistakes. Learn from what you say and do. And remember to call on God. Go to confession. Confess even on your own. Stop yourself when you're being tempted to do something and avoid that occasion to begin with. You're going to learn. You're going to see patterns of how and why you do these things that you regret. And embrace the fact that God is teaching you. That's what life is all about. Living and learning, and we'll do it until we die. I love you all. Have a blessed and inspired week. Take care.